Hello Clan fans! So episode 10 of season 7 part 2 just premiered, and I will give some sage advice here. Do not watch the show at 2 in the morning after you have made an entire Thanksgiving meal because I was exhausted. Anyway, I still enjoy the episode, and I will say there was more that happened in it than I thought was going to. So without further ado, let us get into episode 10 titled Brotherly Love. We opened up the episode with a flashback to Jamie and Ian Sr.'s childhood, and they are being trained in combat. And it's basically just to show like what they are supposed to be to each other, to support each other and be there for each other no matter what. We then flash forward to the current time where Jamie has taken Ian for some air and they have a moment to chat. While Jamie and Ian are talking, Jamie does actually tell Ian that after Willie died, who was his youngest brother, that he saw Ian as a brother, and we have seen in the past how much of a brotherly connection that they have, and I think that's what also makes it really hard about Ian's death. It's that you're not just losing a father and a husband, but you're also losing somebody who was very, very important to Jamie, and somebody who filled in as a brother that he lost, and it's a friendship that you don't see too often. And it's just also sad because you realize that they didn't get a lot of time together like in the later years. There's just like this air of like you just know that Ian's final days are here, and it's hard to watch, but I will say it's not as long as I thought it was going to be. Because literally the next scene shows Jamie putting Ian into his bed, and Jenny is by his side as well as Jamie, and basically Ian, he gives a final line to Jamie that he's still watching over or out for him, and then he says Jenny's name, and then he takes his final breath. Now what I will say is, I genuinely thought it wasn't going to happen as quick as it did. I thought they were going to at least keep him alive until the end of the episode, but that did not happen. But at the same time, like, it was just such a sad send-off, and I know we're going to miss Ian. One of the best characters in the show, to be honest, and it's sad that we didn't really get to see him for a while, and he finally comes back and we only get an episode and a scene with him. Yeah. But yes, to Steven Cree that portrayed Ian Sr., like, he did an amazing job. And his character will be genuinely missed. And just want to say thank you to him for bringing Ian to life. So once Ian has passed, Jamie is digging the grave for him, and he's basically talking to Jenny, like, now that she's lost her husband, he invites her to stay on the ridge with them. And for the time being, Jenny declines. She says that she's not ready to do that yet, and maybe someday, but today's not that day. I do recall from the books that she's technically going to go to the ridge at some point. I don't know how the show's going to handle it. And then the main focus falls onto Claire and Ian. So they arrive in Philadelphia, and Claire is dropped off at the house where Henry is trying to recover from bullet shots so he basically still has musket balls stuck in his body, but we do learn that another doctor has performed an operation on him and was able to get one of the musket balls out, just not the second one. And Claire learns that it was Denzel, who we haven't seen since the last half of the season. So yes, he was in town helping out Henry, and Claire actually recruits him because she needs assistance, and she basically uses the ether because Lord John miraculously knew what he needed to get for her. Like, seriously, every time this guy is on screen, he creates the most unrealistic expectations. He just is so kind. He knows what people need. He remembers what they were doing. Like, How? How does this man not exist? But yes. So yes, Lord John has been an immense help in helping Claire prepare for the operation, and Claire is able to successfully find the musket ball, and she's able to remove it in one of the most graphic scenes. You know, I can handle stuff like that, but there's times when it just continues and you see a lot and you're like, This is why I didn't become a doctor. So thank you for that confirmation, Outlander. So with Denzel being in Philadelphia, that also means that Rachel is there as well. And young Ian has presumed that she is in a different location. So he's about to leave for one of the forts. And then while he's still in town, Rollo happens to run away from Rachel while she's out with William in the marketplace. And she loses track of him, so she doesn't know where he is. She doesn't reunite with Ian in that moment. However, we see Mr. Bug, who is still around, and as we saw in the last episode of part 1, he learned that Rachel had Rollos, and he knows that Ian is Rollo's owner. So he knows that Rachel must be important to Ian. So, yeah, he's out for some revenge. But yes, Rollo finds Ian, and Ian unfortunately does not find Rachel in that moment. However, the next day, she is in the stables, and Mr. Bug attacks her. And thankfully, Ian happens to come upon the house that Claire and Denzel are at, and he asks Denzel about Rachel. He tells him where to find her, and Ian comes in right in time, but Mr. Bug still has the upper hand. He is holding Rachel hostage, threatening to kill her in front of Ian, and amazingly, you know, I don't know why the characters risk these things. Ian just grabs Rachel and pulls her away like it was nothing. But, I mean, thankfully it worked out, but it's just a little unrealistic, in my opinion. But so yes, a fight ensues between Ian and Mr. Bug. Unfortunately, Ian gets whacked in the arm with the axe, and he becomes unable to fend off Mr. Bug at one point. Thankfully, William miraculously shows up and shoots Mr. Bug dead. So now that storyline has come to a close. Again, this is just my opinion. I feel like that happened a lot sooner than it was going to. Like, I know there's a lot more storyline to the season. I just thought it was going to play out a little more than it did. But I guess it's good. We don't have to worry about him anymore. Yeah, that guy was just so determined, and Rachel even tried to talk him out of killing her, and he was just like so set on the fact that vengeance would be like fulfilling a duty to his wife, and there was just no talking him out of doing what he was going to do. Ian and Rachel also have a scene later on, and he finally tells her that he loves her in English. I didn't get if Rachel said she loved him or not because she compared him to a wolf. But that sounds more like a companion. I don't know. It feels like Ian got friend-zoned, but I know he didn't, and it's like I said, don't watch this at 2 in the morning after you make a Thanksgiving meal. It's the brain just cannot comprehend. But yeah, I like that Ian finally got to tell her that he loves her officially. I just wish I knew if Rachel had said it back technically. That's just my opinion. I was exhausted. So another part of the plot is that Mercy, who is housing Henry, she is an African-American woman who has her independence. Lord John is actually also wearing his uniform to protect her in case anybody confronts her. But she does actually go to Claire at one point, and Claire does learn that Walter, who we did see in part 1, was Mercy's husband, and we had learned that they had parted on some bad terms, and Claire does try to confirm that he did love her, that he really regretted how they parted, and Mercy takes the news, and it's hard to accept, but she does make peace with it. And then the other part of Mercy's story is that she does happen to be a spy for the Americans, and unfortunately suspicion has been confirmed with her, and she's being watched. So Claire, who has been going throughout town not being suspicious to any of the men, she actually offers to deliver a letter that needs to get out there that Mercy cannot do. And while she's out going for herbs, this is the one time, of course, they would question her, wouldn't you know, because she had been there the day before. So they're like, wait, weren't you just here yesterday? Do you really need more herbs? And she tries to explain, like, there's a rare root or something that she needs more of, and there's not any in town. So amazingly, they let her through. But that part actually was a little suspenseful. She returns back to the house, and just for some clarification, she had received a letter from Jamie that he had gone to France, he visited Joan at the convent, and he was just getting things in order before returning back to the Americas. And he explained which ship that they were on, which, do not ask me what the name was. I know you guys know. I couldn't even tell you how to say it, how to pronounce it, how to spell it. It's a very special name, but yes, he is on his way back, and according to the date, it looks like he was on his way like about 6 weeks ago. And unfortunately, when Claire enters the room, Lord John has been visited by, I think he was a captain. He explains that the ship that Jamie was on was lost at sea. And I knew this scene was coming because they've been showing it in the trailers. But just when you see Lord John's face, like, you just know, like, it's bad. Because he feels so deeply for Jamie, because he cares about him very much. And he's trying to get Claire to understand that Jamie is gone, but she's in very strong denial at this. She's saying, like, no, if he had died, if his heart had stopped, mine would stop too. But, like, Lord John tries to confirm with her, like, everything that could have been humanly done was done, and they found no bodies, and there was just no way for him to survive. So Claire is just in shock as well as denial. And that night she just has so much trouble sleeping, and she's having all these memories of Jamie, and she just falls apart, and it's heartbreaking. She's gone through this how many times? Like, how many times can you lose your husband? Like, to add to Claire's distraught, she has been discovered as a spy because she delivered one stinking letter. That's all it takes. But yes, so she is about to be arrested, and Lord John is told this. And he is given a day to explain to Claire and to bring her in. But he has another idea up his sleeve. He goes to Claire and he tells her that she's about to be arrested, and he asks her to marry him. And I knew this was coming, but it still sends you into a state of surprise, you know? But Claire is just still so distraught over losing Jamie. She's almost like, you know what, just let them arrest me, let them hang me. But he reminds her, like, if she is discovered as a spy, then everybody that she loves who is a part of this will also be killed. So this is what brings her out of that, and she realizes that, you're right, I can't just let them suffer. Lord John and Claire, you know, I knew that was gonna happen. I've read that that was happening in book 7 or whatever, but it's a lot to wrap your mind around, I guess. Now, if you don't want spoilers, you can stop here or skip to the end, but we know Jamie's not dead. Because A, they didn't even bother to show the storm hitting the ship, except when the story was being told to Claire. But we also didn't see Jamie in the middle of that storm. There was no sight of Jamie at all. And then in the book, I believe it turns out he ends up on a different ship. So this was news that was not able to get over to Claire before she learns this awful news. So we will see how all of that goes down, because when Jamie learns of certain someone marrying his wife, things are not gonna go too well. But yes, we will get to that bridge when we get to that bridge. So where we had left off with Roger's story in the last episode was that he and Buck had made it to Inverness, and they are meeting with Gaelis. Remember her? And yes, it was confirmed that she's Duncan. I couldn't remember that. Also, it's Lottie Verbeek. I'm not always good with names, to be honest. But yes, so she has returned, and it's kind of an awkward situation because Roger is just like staring at her in shock. And she's like, "Do I know you, sir?" And he's like, "Oh no, just I thought you were supposed to be this old wise person just based off of the description." And then he basically explains to her that Buck's heart is having a problem. So she listens in, and then she looks at him and she's like, "Do I know you?" And I love Roger's inner monologue where he's like, "Well, he's your son." But yes, the inner monologue thing's actually serving some good humor in this season. But yes, Gaelis goes to make some tea for Buck because it's going to help him with his heart. And Roger explains to Buck who Gaelis is, but I don't think he explains that she is his mother. I think he's trying to avoid that because that might cause a problem in the timeline, maybe. He's afraid of how Buck might react. We also get another confrontation with Roger and Gaelis, and he's basically trying to find out if she knows Rob Cameron, because he is assuming that he is the ferryman that has been spotted. And Gaelis, she basically flirts with her descendant, and he tries to explain that he's a married man, and she's like, "Well, I'm a married woman, but that doesn't stop me." And he's like, "Well, it stops me." And I was like, thank God it does. Because this would be so messed up. It already is, but it would be even more messed up. But yes, he basically tries to trick her into admitting that she knows Rob Cameron, but she says that she doesn't know who he is, so he actually believes her, and we get another surprise guest. In walks, guess who? Dougal Mackenzie! We are getting all kinds of cameos and characters in this season, and I am living for it. So yes, Graham McTavish is back, and you know, that dude never ages. He looks just like he did in season 1. But yes, he actually is there with news about the ferryman, and he gives Roger their tags with a name on it, and he assumes based on the initials that it must be for Jeremiah, the son of Roger. But after Dougal and Gaelis leave, you know, this part I was a little confused. I'm not sure if this is the first time they've met or they're pretending to meet in front of everybody. I was so tired, I just couldn't read the signs. But yes, we can assume an affair was going on as soon as they left the room. But yes, Roger's looking at the tags and he's realizing, like, no, the ferryman is not Rob Cameron, but however, these tags belong to my father. So we have added another layer into all of this madness. So yes, Roger's father had apparently vanished during World War I, and the dog tags are a clue that he must be there in that time. So I guess we will find out what happens with that storyline, because that is the cliffhanger that we leave on. We still have no whereabouts of Jemmy, and we haven't seen Brianna in this episode. I get the feeling we'll see more of them in the next one. So something else I wanted to talk about in this episode was William and Rachel's relationship. So he clearly has feelings for her, and she does not reciprocate them. She feels more for Ian than she does for William. With William, it's more of a friendship. But she also feels like once they go back to war that they'll become enemies again, because she is still like healing those that are on the American team. But he does assure her, like, honestly, like, it doesn't matter what's going on in the world, like, I'm still your friend, which was really sweet. And I love that he saved Ian and Rachel in that situation, and he said, like, get out of here. Honestly, if they find me with Arch, like, it's fine. I'll get away with it. So he was able to use his power, his status, to actually, like, help them out, which I thought was very, very brave of him and very sweet. And that just confirms that he really cares about Rachel. But yeah, I don't know where their relationship's going to go after this. It'll be interesting to see. I think he does understand that she feels strongly for Ian more than she does for him. Which I think he will eventually find a love interest. I don't know who it is. But yeah, I'm curious to see where his storyline goes after this. In all honesty, I did have some critiques from this episode. So like I mentioned, I felt like they killed off Ian Sr. a little too soon, in my opinion. I felt like we needed a little more time, just since we're not ever going to see him again. But I guess in a way that does kind of reflect real life. But the sad part was that it didn't make me cry, which is weird to say, but I was expecting to cry in this episode. But for some reason I didn't feel as sad as I should have. And again, I could contribute to the exhaustion, but I don't know. It just felt a little too quick, and that's just how I felt. I don't know how any of you guys felt, but it just felt out of, like, all of a sudden. And the same with the shipwreck for Jamie. Like, I felt like there wasn't enough of a build-up for that, because she and Jamie have been apart just for one episode. And I remember in season 3 when they were apart for was it 5 or 6 episodes? Like, that had more of an impact with their time apart. And now I know they're not going to be together in the next episode, most likely, and maybe not even the one after that. But he's going to come back fairly soon, and we also did get confirmation via book that he survived that shipwreck. He wasn't even that shipwreck. But I don't know, it just feels like it's not as impactful as I thought it would be. Like, Katrina's acting brilliant. Like, hearing the news and, like, dealing with the aftermath that night, it's a lot. And she's, like, showing all the emotions perfectly. Like, that was great. But I think just the way that it unraveled, I guess, I didn't feel as much as I thought I would. Yeah, which is weird, because usually I feel stuff for these moments in the show. I think maybe I also got my crying out in the first episode, but I don't know. I can't place it, but this episode just didn't do it for me. Now, not to say it wasn't a good episode. I did enjoy it, and I think they covered a lot of ground, and I know there's going to be more to cover. It just felt like there was a lot happening at once, and I don't know, it just made the other stuff less impactful, I guess. That's just how I felt. But yes, suffice to say, I did enjoy the episode, and I always enjoy, like I said, Roger's humor with his inner monologue, because what he is dealing with is a lot. It's nice to have a little bit of humor in there, but also, like, relatable humor at the same time, because it's like, oh my gosh, his son got kidnapped, and then he ends up in the wrong time, and then he ends up finding his ancestor, who is insane. and it's a lot. But I did enjoy his story with finding out that there's a twist with his father being alive in that time. So that'll be interesting to see that reunion. Overall, good episode. It'll be interesting to see how the rest of the season goes. I know that we have Lord John and Claire's marriage coming up, which will be awkward in so many ways. But yes, it'll be interesting to see how that all goes. And what did you all think of the episode? Did you enjoy it? Did you think it was a lot? Just tell me in the comments. Yes, I will see you for episode 11, and we will see what goes down with Lord John and Claire. And is Jamie still alive? Yes, he is. All right, I'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.